Okay, good morning. We're starting Chumash Chadash, a new Sefer HaPekudim, and we know that several times it's called Sefer HaPekudim. It's not our kinoi. It appears even in the Mishnah several times, in Totah, in Yoma, in Menachot. We have all Sefer HaPekudim. And what does the word Pekudim mean? Because we know that in Parashat Bamidbar and even so, we have a lot of numbers, a lot of gathering around Shevet Levi, and we have the Pkida of each tribe where he should sit or stand around the Mishkan, around Shevet Levi. We have to pay attention that during the period of the Midbar, Am Yisrael is surrounded, the Mishkan is surrounded by Am Yisrael, and in the middle, we have Shevet Levi, we have Kehilat and Gershon and Merari, and one side the Mishkan itself. In Eretz Israel, however, we are surrounding Binyamin, because if you look at the map in Sefer Yoshua, when Am Yisrael gets into Eretz Israel, so the middle, Yerushalayim, Yom Yerushalayim, etc., Binyamin is in the middle, and Yehuda, his brother, shares with him Yerushalayim, and all the other tribes from the east, if there is the east and the west, because it's very narrow, and from north and south, surrounding Binyamin. So why do we have a difference? The answer is very simple, because Binyamin is the only tribe who was born on Derech Bet Lechem in Eretz Israel, so he's the only Israeli, because all the other tribes were born in Aram, by Lavan Arami. So the only Israeli one is in the middle, and all his other brothers surrounding him, whereas in the Midbar, it's Chutz La'aretz Keilu, basically, so we make in the center the Kedusha, because then we don't have how to differentiate between the brothers. So we take who is more holy, who is closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, etc., in order to put it in the middle. That's one. Then we have 4 machanot. So another look at the machanot will show us that Yehuda is a leader of the 3 tribes sitting on the east, whereas Yosef or Ephraim and Menashe all together are with Binyamin at the west. Okay, and we have done the leader of the 3 tribes in the north, and Reuven, the leader of the 3 tribes in the south. So why do we have Yehuda and Yosef like this? I just want to focus on 2 of them, not on all the Seder of all the Machanot. We know that there along Sefer Bereshit, we see that there is a big difference between Yehuda and Yosef. Yehuda is not afraid of sinning. We see that sometimes he sins, like Yehuda and Tamar. The whole situation was his sin, but even though he is not ashamed to say Ta'iti, I've mistaken, Chatati, Mimeni, as we know, and that's his Maila, the Maila of being able to say I'm sorry. Whereas Yosef never says sorry. Yosef never fails, because if he fails all the way down. And that's why Yosef says that even though that he's deeply rooted in the Egyptian culture, he never gets into it, and he's afraid Eshet Potiphar, and he keeps away. He never sins, because once he sees, he will never be back. And that's we can see in Sefer Melachim, that all the kings of Israel, when they started sinning with Yerovam and all the kings after him, they never stopped. Whereas David HaMelech, the Gemara says in Yoma, Shaul be'achat ve'alta lo, David b'shtayim ve'lo alta lo. Shaul has sinned just once in the Amalek, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, no, Netzach Yisrael lo yishaker, have swapped you. Whereas David HaMelech sins several times. He sins in Batsheva, he sins in a few things, even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him the opportunity to repent, to make tshuva, because he can say chatati. And that's his ma'ala. The melech, the king, the leader, Yehuda, can be a person that is very tough from the one side, but very soft to say, I'm sorry, I can hear different attitudes, I can listen to you. Whereas Yosef symbolizes a person that never fails, but if he fails, he goes all the way down. So we see all this difference all over Sefer Bereshit, and we have the Ma'avak. At the beginning of Parashat Vayigash, we see Vayigash elav Yehuda, and if you look at the Midrash describes mamash like two, I don't know how to say it, two empires, Yosef and Yehuda. They symbolize two different nations, two different camps, two different leaders. One leading of the power from Yosef, but I don't listen to anybody. That's my shita. That's who I am. And one is Yehuda, me'arev, involving more people, listening to more attitudes. And you have soldiers, you have leaders in Tzahal. Sometimes their koach comes from the way that they do what they want, they do what they believe, they don't listen to anybody. They sometimes do, even though that other commanders said that differently. But some people have their koach comes from listening to others. And that's why we have Yehuda and Yosef located in this place. Because unlike today when you take a map, so you have the end, the north, that's the base of the map. And if you would like to know where you are in Europe, so you see, okay, that's the north, and then you hold the map according to the north. And even the matzpen is around according to the north. In the Mikra, in biblical maps, everybody looks at the sun, at the east, okay? And that's why all over the Mikra, we find Kedim. Vayisa lot mikedem, vayis'u mikedem. What does it mean? So the Midrash says mikadmono shel olam, that Lot has departed from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but that's a Midrash. What the pshat is, east is kedem, because it's kedma, is looking forward. And that's why the Yam HaMelach, the Dead Sea, is called the Yam HaKadmoni, because not just because it's from the beginning of the world, that's true, but because it's, if you look kadima, if you look forward, you look to the east. Okay, and that's why Yamina and Smola in the Mikra, in the Tanakh, is south and north. Avraham tells Lot, Ima Yamin ve'asmeila ve'ima Smol ve'yamina. Okay, it doesn't just mean that if you do one thing, I'll do the opposite, and if you do the opposite, I'll do the right thing. He says, if I meaning say, I'm looking to the east. If you take the south, you go to the Negev, to Hebron, I'll take the north. Okay, if you take the north, I'll take the south. And we know that Lot decided to take the south, and that's why he headed towards Sodom. So we have the head is, Kadmon is east, and the Achori, my back, is at the west. That's why Yam HaTichon is called, the Mediterranean, is called Yam HaAcharon, Besofo El Hayam HaAcharon. A few times and it doesn't mean the last one of them, because I don't know any source that the Mediterranean was created after all the oceans, but it means that it's from my back. And that's why we can, according to what we have said, we can say that Yehuda is heading the east, because Yehuda, the sun, means the power of the Goyim, the sons means the opportunity of sinning, because the sun in the Mikra symbolizes of the Avodah Zarah. We know from the Mishnah in Sukkah that during the ceremony of Sukkot, they were going to the east during Simchat Shoeva, and said that our forefather worshipped Avodah Zarah, and they looked at the sun, like in Sefer Yechezkel, that Nashim Mevakot et Tammuz, and they were looking towards the sun. But we, unlike them, we are to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's why we look to the west. Meaning to say that Yehuda is not afraid of looking at the east, because he is a person that can deal with sins, can deal with the challenges, that even though it's dangerous in the spiritually speaking, whereas Yosef, he is very, very careful, and that's why he is towards the west, towards the Shekhinah, towards the place that is far away from being able to see. That's another issue. Now we go to the main thing of the parasha, and if you look at the parasha and you look, as I said before, in Parshat Naso, you might conclude that all Sefer Bamidbar till Baalotcha, because we know that from Parashat Baalotcha we have another Sefer that's we'll deal with it then. We know that we have Chamisha Chumshei Torah, but as to Chazal we have Shiv'a Shvu'ei Torah, because Sefer Bamidbar is divided into three parts. The first one is Parashat Bamidbar, Naso, and a little bit of Baalotcha. The second one is Parashat Vayivi Binsoa, just 85 letters. In Parashat Vayivi Aaron, Shekuma Hashem v'chulei, and from then on we have a different sefer. So let's leave the different sefer and let's leave Parashat Vayivi, but just deal with the beginning. We might understand that the whole Sefer Bamidbar deals with a system, gathering around the Mishkan, where you are located, each tribe. You're ready to go to Eretz Israel, and we know that in Parashat Baalotcha we'll see that we're very close. נוסעים אנחנו ויאמר משה לחובב בן רעואל המדייני, נוסעים אנחנו אל המקום אשר אמר השם. Okay, we're about to enter Eretz Israel. לך איתנו והיטבנו לך. Go with us, and it will be good for you. כי השם דיבר טוב על ישראל. He doesn't know, Moshe, that in a few days they'll start sinning, and then from one sin to another they'll get around and go to Chet HaMeraklim, and then 40 years and whole the history. But Moshe is very sure that in the second year he moves from Har Sinai and he moves straight to Eretz Israel. 11 Yom Mechoreb. That's all the issue. In 2 weeks he should be in Eretz Israel. We know actually that they moved Kaf Be'iyar Shana Shniya. The first Shavuot, Chag Shavuot, we're heading Chag Shavuot. So the first Shavuot they made in Har Sinai. That's where they got the Torah. The second Shavuot they should be in Eretz Israel, because they moved from Har Sinai, Kaf Be'iyar, 11 Yom Mechoreb, it's the most. So they should be in Shavuot learning Torah in Eretz Israel, and unfortunately, because of the sin, they missed it. Okay, so we have Lichora, just the gathering of the Machaneh towards this, organizing the army, know that each one is armed, each one knows his role, and that's all the Sefer Bamidbar. To negate that, that's the reason why the Torah uses again and again and again Pakod. Vayifkod Moshe, Pakod, Pakadeti, Pakad Moshe. If you want to say in Hebrew that you appoint somebody to some role, you say lemanot. Okay, minui, appointment. Meaning to say that you are a part of something. We need some clerks, we need some officers, and you are chosen to take your part and to be the officer. It can be in the army, it can be in the government, whatever. But Moshe says poked, and poked, unlike lemanot, meaning to give you your own meaning, and that's why Moshe repeats again and again and again, lifkod. We have two things in Sefer Bamidbar. We have ish al machaneu ve'ish al diglo letzivotam. The parasha repeats again and again that each one stands on his machaneh, ve'ish al diglo. Why does a parasha have to repeat it? Because the machaneh is my tribe, and the degel belongs to the tribe. So why do we have ish al machaneh vediglo? Why is the degel? Why is the flag important, significant? What does it symbolize? Okay, each tribe has his own flag. What does it mean? So it's very clear that all over Sefer Bamidbar, we have Ish al Machaneu. From the one side, we want to belong to somebody bigger than us. We want to be a part of something bigger than us, to associate ourselves with our tribe. But on the other hand, we have the individual, and we have the Ish al Diglo. I want to feel something unique. That's why I have, either by being nifkad, by my own identity, or even by the shevet, by being a part of the shevet. I'm not just a part of, I feel gava of being the degel, okay, being a part of the degel. The degel symbolizes, as we know nowadays that we have a lot of fans of football, basketball teams, or whatever. They have a degel. What does it? They have a degel. They sell a lot of things. What does it mean? It means that you have a tzaif that you do with it, a scarf. What does it mean? It means that each group chooses its color. And if I am, let's say, yellow or blue or black, that means that if I'm Lakers, so I like the purple and the yellow, meaning to say that I choose these colors as young, as vibrant, whatever it means. So I feel that I am associated with these colors, and the same thing happens with the degel. You know that if we talk about a nation, about Eretz Israel, Medinat Israel, so in Yom HaAtzmaut, in Yom Yerushalayim, we have menifim et הדגל, we have דגל Israel. And unfortunately, we had the father of a family, D, and Rav Louis D, that said that you should put דגל Israel. What does it mean? What does it mean? Because דגל Israel, לכאורה, from the halachic perspective, from the Toranic perspective, there's no meaning. It's very nice that Rav Soloveitchik, because he was such a halachic person, so he tried to find halachic significance in the degel. And he said that because we know that during the war, sometimes you go for, you endanger yourself in order to put the degel. I remember that when Tzahal was in Lebanon, so Hezbollah sometimes tried to invade the Mutzavim, to invade, and he attacked as soldiers, but sometimes they endangered the soldiers just to put a flag of Hezbollah. And then when Tzahal conquered the Mutzav Mechadash, so he sent somebody to put Degel Israel, okay? Why is it so important? Because the Degel symbolizes your realm, your tchum, that it belongs to you, and it gives you a moral support. It gives you that's a part of Medinat Israel, okay? Wherever the flag is, that's where Am Israel is. So Rav Soloveitchik understood in halachic terms that since somebody endangered himself to put the degel, that's why the degel is a mutzar milchama. It's based on ilchot avelut, and then he says that it has a Toranic meaning. But leave just for now the halachic explanations. I think that it's very clear that the degel Israel symbolizes what you are, and what sometimes we don't think. What does blue and white mean? What does Magen David mean? But we understand that we like this flag because it symbolizes us. That's what happens with the flags of the tribes. From the one side, there is Ish al Machaneu. I just belong to something bigger than me. From the other side, I belong to a specific tribe's flag, and that's why the Ish al Diglo. And we have all the Sefer Bamidbar, this dualic system. I'll explain. At the end of Sefer Bamidbar, we have Parashat Matot. And וידבר משה אל ראשי המטות לבני ישראל לאמור, and then he talks about Parashat Nedarim, something irrelevant to us now. But he uses the word וידבר משה אל ראשי המטות. The tribes are called matot, not tribes. all over the Torah. We know that Moshe talks to Shvatim, Nesiim. He doesn't mean, he never mentions Matot. But at the end of Parashat of Sefer Bamidbar, Parashat Matot Masei, we find 91 times that the Mate is mentioned for using a tribe. למטה ראובן, שמו בן זכור. למטה שמעון, not לשבט ראובן, למטה. Why? So, and I think that I've given a shiur on that. There is a very nice thing I've heard from Rav Weinberg, of Mattis Weinberg. It's written in his book Frameworks. There is a duality even in Hebrew or in English. If you want to say that I have a mate, mishenet, I cannot walk and I take something to lean on it, you can say it in English, a staff, right? How do you say it in Hebrew? You say mishenet or makel, but basically you say mate. Moshe לקח את המטה, Moshe was old, okay? Basically, he needed something, a cane or a staff, to lean on it. On the other hand, you can say a club. Mate can be a club, okay? Can be a stick club with which a policeman has a mate in order to hit, okay? So we can say a club, we can say a staff. We can call shevet a shevet. That's what we do all over the Torah. The shevet Shimon, the shevet Reuven. But we can say lemate Reuven. So we nickname the same tribe. We say sometimes mate, sometimes shevet. What is it in Hebrew? What is the difference between mate and shevet? So if I disconnect it from the tribal connection and I go to its own meaning, so shevet is something to hit with. Kadosh Baruch Hu tells by the Nevi'im several times, "Hoy Ashur shevet api." Okay, they are used Ashur, that they make you so many problems. They are just my shevet. They are just my club to hit you because you have sinned, Am Yisrael. And therefore, Kadosh Baruch Hu gives us a punishment by taking the goyim to latzik lanu, to destroy it and disturb us. But shevet can be used to hit as well. Shevet is used to hit, but mate can be used to hit because it's mate. But mate usually has a different meaning. Okay, and in English you see that duality by the same meaning. If you want to hit somebody, you hit him with a club. If you want to lean on something, you lean on the staff. If you have a group of people with which you learn, with which you play, with which you go to Tiulim or you go to hotels, etc., so you can relate to it by saying that I'm a part of a club, if you're very elite, but if you are more nice, so you say I'm a part of a group, I'm a part of a staff. And that's the difference between staff and club. Club means something elite, posh, that the club of playing tennis, the club of playing bridge. I know to play bridge, you know to play bridge, that's why you are a part of the club. You have to pay something admission to get into the club. But you cannot come because you don't know to play or you didn't pay. A staff in school, you don't say that I'm in a club, cheder morim. You say I'm a part of a staff in yeshiva or in a system, educational system. You're just a part of a staff. Because a staff is something you lean on it. It's something that gives you emotional support. It's a friend, but it's not a friend that you do to show others that I am a part and he is a part of, but you are the others not a part of. But it's something that gives you koach and him koach and everybody as a part of the staff. It has its own koach. That's why when we talk about mateh, to the Shaen alav, that gives me power, that gives me as a security that I don't fall, that's a staff. That's why when I want to a power just to show off how choshovai, I use a club, and that's the difference between shvatim and mateh. You can think during along Sefer Bamidbar that, as I said, Moshe just gathers around the klal, the machane. And by gathering all Am Israel around the Mikdash, you have the problem that you lose your own identity. When you are conscripted to the army, so you're given a number, and you're just a part of the system. Nobody looks at you at your name. Everybody talks to you like in your mispar ishi. And you, chas v'shalom, leavdil, the Nazis used it mamash, as a part of demolishing and taking the identity of the human being. You're no longer a person. You don't have your hair. You don't have your identity. You're just a number from now on. And in chas v'shalom להבדיל, כן? אבל in Am Yisrael, in gathering a machane around the Mishkan, you might do the same thing because everybody loses. Now you can say, okay, in the diaspora, in Yetziat Mitzrayim, we were tribes, everybody belonged to his own family, you made the Leil Seder with your own family, okay? Now, no longer. You are becoming a part of the big nationality of Am Yisrael. And that's a big failure. And as I once said, he writes, you can argue with it, but the difference between the United States of America and the state of Israel, that the state of Israel, when Ben Gurion and Mapai in Shnot HaChamishim in the 50s, 40s, they decided to gather all of Am Yisrael from different places. And they decided to give them an identity, an Israeli identity. They decided which identity it was. It was Chiloni, it was Zioni, but it was a shame to be something other than the Israeli identity. You had to change your name. You had a Polish name. You Ben Gurion, okay, was green from at the beginning, but he changed and he enforced everybody to change his name. Okay, Levi Eshkol is not the name of, he wasn't born Eshkol. Eshkol is a very Israeli name. And all of them, they had to change. Very few of them, he permitted them not to change their name. And we know the Yemenites and a lot of other religious immigrants that they tried to change them, etc. What Ben Gurion thought was that coming from all the 4 ages of the earth, we have to put one identity because otherwise it wouldn't go. And I spoke a few weeks ago about the Nusach Achid. Rav Goren thought קצת דומה לזה, similar to that, when he tried to establish a Nusach Achid, he thought that all the Nusachim, Nusach Sfarad, Nusach Ashkenaz, Nusach Hasidic, Nusach Litai, is no longer relevant. Coming to Eretz Israel, we have to change into one identity. And he said that there are now a lot of Rabbanim that think that the minhagim that we have known for 700 years from Ashkenaz, from Sfarad, are no longer relevant. You know that around the Kitniot issue, every year people think, nowadays we have, Baruch Hashem, a lot of intermarriage between Ashkenazim and Sfaradim, leavdil, and it's a big difficulty that we didn't have in Ashkenaz, because then we didn't eat Kitniot. Everybody didn't eat Kitniot, but now my wife eats, my husband eats, etc. So at the beginning, there was a big quarrel, a big halachic fight or dispute about whether we should go on with the issue for itself. But now we have more people will say, okay, even if you had the Ashkenazic old minhag of keeping the kitniyot, but when coming to Eretz Israel changes the whole situation, because coming to Eretz Israel saying that in Eretz Israel we have just one halacha, and explained a few weeks ago on Monday, in the Monday Shiur, that that's what Rav Goren tried to do, to put a nusach achid. He tried to take, he melted down 13 nusachim of the Haggadah into one nusach, okay? Because he tried to establish a nusach that in the army, everybody will do just one thing. And in basically, it didn't succeed. Neither to Rav Goren nor to Ben Gurion, because maybe it was very important at the beginning of the country, but then it made a lot of problems. We know that Parashat Yaldei Teiman, it was a big problem. I remember the Parasha of Uzi Meshulam, that was one of them that decided to make a lot of problems, and one of his followers died even by a policeman because he made riots. And taking a lot of different tribes and melting them down into one melting pot, the army, the Nusach Achid, being Israeli, doesn't go. And as Rav Weinberg says, I think that he's right, but saying it to Americans, some of them didn't agree with him. Said that he said that unlike in Israel, in the United States of America, it was different because they didn't want to melt down identities. They understood that they have different people. They have the Mayflowers, the Irish people. They have Jews coming from Ukraine, Russia at the beginning of the 20th century. They have Italians, they have Puerto Ricans, they have a lot of other nationalities. And melting them down into one identity wouldn't go. And that's why we have in America, we have each nationality can go with the American dream. You have Hanukkah, so you have a big Chanukia. We have Italians Day, the Columbus Day, whatever. We have a lot of Chagim that each Eda, each tribe will have his own Chagim, and the other will know how to honor this. But all the tribes are surrounded or under the dream of the American dream of whatever it means, of Megillat Ha'atzmaut, okay? Or also the Independence Megillah, okay? So what is the difference? The difference between America and Eretz Israel, that in Eretz Israel they tried just to give a national identity. And I think I've seen it myself. When I was in yeshiva, like 25 years ago, the whole system, was the whole learning in Yeshivot Esther was based on Rav Kook's writings and explaining them just in the national meaning, that you shouldn't think of yourself, you should think of what's good for the country. I remember my wife told me that in her class in high school, when they decided to go to Shirut Leumi, so the only question was what's good for Medinat Israel, not for me. If I'm familiar with teaching, very good, I'll go with teaching. But if I'm not good in teaching, why should I do Shirut Leumi with teaching? But everybody did it because it was then considered as chashuv to Medinat Israel, okay? If you go to the army and you're not a good soldier, you are ish machshevim, you donate much to the army by being in computers, not by fighting. Okay, but nowadays we understand it because we have individuality that came to the other side, all the way down to individuality 30 years later. But 30 years earlier, we had just nationality, just collectivism, just thinking of what's good to Medinat Israel Zeklal, like what they tried to do by Ben Gurion. And if you will look at the way that the United States of America did it, so we know that they balanced between the Klal issue, between organizers, the whole Leumim, the whole tribes around the dream, around Chalom, around ideas, values. Nowadays, America starts to have a lot, to confront a lot of difficulties because the dream has been fulfilled, and now they're asking what should we do with our identity. That's another problem. But years it went very well. Okay, United States of America symbolized the dream, And if you come from different weak countries, you can dream, and America will give you all the opportunities to do it. And you can be what you are. You can be the tribe. You are not a tribe anymore. You are a staff. Okay, that's why America helps you to be what you are, to identify with a flag, to be nishan, leaning on the staff, not showing it as a show off to others. And that's why at the end of Sefer Bamidbar, we have a correction, because all over Sefer Bamidbar we might think that Moshe Rabbeinu just makes a collectivism that gathers all the tribes and tells them, now getting into Eretz Yisrael, you are no longer a part of who you are. So at the end of Sefer Bamidbar, Moshe Rabbeinu tells them, Mate, 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 Mate. You are no longer a tribe. You are no longer a club. You are a staff. You have to understand that even though that I have put you around the Mishkan, even though I've made a big machaneh, but you are who you are, and there are differences between Reuven, Shimon, Levi, etc. And it's fine, it's good. You don't have to assimilate in one identity. You can be who you are. And if going back to what we've started with, so that's maybe the chashivut of stressing out hakod. It's not just an appointment. Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't tell Yehuda, you sit in the east, and Yosef, you sit in the west, because I've thought that that's the best for Am Yisrael, whatever. No, you sit in the east because you symbolizes the east, and your flag symbolizes who you are, and you sit yourself in the west because you, as we said, you are far away from the possibility of sinning. You're far away from listening to others. You have your own identity. That's why you are at the west. You have a place, you have a location. I'll use you, your staff, your tribe, as a part of the system, but you, on the other hand, be just a tribe. You can feel achva and friendship and partnership with your own people like you, and it doesn't contradict the fact that you're a part of Klal Yisrael. That's it for today.
That was very nice. Very nice.
Shavuot tov.